Brent here with Bring Your Own Tools, aka BYOT, and on today's project we are going to be serving up this amazing black American walnut serving tray. So if you want to learn how to build it, keep on watching. Let's get started. Now with this project, it all starts with some black American walnut. Yeah, it actually is black American walnut under all of that dirt and grime and wear and tear. I really don't know what happened to these boards way back when for the past few years, but it hasn't been pretty. But that's the beauty of a DeWalt planer, is that it can take off years and years of abuse in just a few passes. And as you saw from the beginning of this video, this board turns out incredibly beautiful, and considering the fact that it started out like this, it's pretty impressive. Now, if you haven't used a DeWalt planer before, I will leave a link in the description box below on where to actually have a detailed description of how to utilize one. It's not very tricky. Now, because these boards are so roughed up, I actually cut them in half just to make it easier to pass through the machine. Plus, they're different thicknesses on both ends, so rather than removing more material than needed on one end, I just cut them in half, and now we get as thick a board as humanly possible because we don't want to waste material. No. And in the end, look at that. I mean, that is quite the amazing difference from what was originally looked like a board that we just should have tossed in the garbage. But as you can see, what lies beneath is what truly matters. Yes, at least that's what my mom always says. Actually, in all reality, I don't think she's ever stated that sentence before in her life, but it works in this application. And as you can see, I'm drawing out a bit of line where I wanted to create a handle for it because the end of this board is quite weathered and it's not really usable in this type of application. So we're going to cut around it, but at the same time, I wanted to create a unique handle because it's going to be a serving tray. So I'm using my jigsaw to cut the line for the handle. This will allow me just to easily fabricate the general dimension and the look that I'm going for, as well as salvage as much wood as I possibly can with this board. Now, as you can tell, it's not your normal serving tray handle, and I'm just not a normal guy, so why do something average? Do something unique and different, and that's what I'm trying to go for here, just to step it up a notch, right? Now, in order to get a nice smooth feel to this handle, I'm using a 1/2 inch round over bit to round over both sides of the handle area. Now, I'm not going through the whole board with this round over bit, just the handle area, because I want to incorporate and have that live edge look on the board, but still then incorporate the round over bit with the handle because it's going to make it perfectly smooth and nice to the touch. Now, this step is extremely easy, and it just adds a layer of character and quality to your piece instantly, so I highly suggest doing that. Now, as for the live edge slab portion of this board, I then just grab a hand scraper and just scrape off any of the larger debris particles. You don't have to get it all, but getting the larger stuff out of the way is always nice and easier this way versus trying to take it all off with your sander. Now, after I get the larger stuff off, I take my random orbital sander with 100 grit sandpaper and sand off all the loose particles. Now, this is pretty easy and self-explanatory, but you will have to sand it by hand at a certain point because you can't really get into some of those grooves with the actual orbital sander. Now that I have that end cleaned up, I then proceed to rounding over the second side of my handle. And due to the fact that one of the sides of this board is not really a live edge slab side, I am actually cutting it off smooth in order to accommodate the fact that I wanted a nice crisp side if it's not going to be a live edge side. Something you obviously don't have to do, but in this case, I'm doing it with my table saw. Now, there are a plethora of different ways to incorporate sanding the inside corners of this handle, but in my case, I'm utilizing a Dremel with a sanding disc. Now, this sanding disc is perfect for this type of application because it's narrow, thin, and you're able to get in all those grooves and corners, but just know that you're going to have to work this by hand at a certain point if you want to get a true smooth finish, because that's what I'm really striving for, is to have a finish that truly feels good in the hand at all times, and getting it sanded down to at least 220 is generally what I require, especially in this type of project, because you're going to be handling this a lot and you want it to feel good at all times. Now, generally when you're not working with a flat surface, you need to do some hand sanding. Now the easiest way to go about this for me is actually bracing your material first and then taking some sandpaper and hand sanding it as needed. Hand sanding will allow you to really realize where the grooves are and where the dips need to be sanded properly in order to accommodate a nice smooth finish. Now once I have all the edges cleaned up and looking good and smooth, I then proceed to taking my random orbital sander and sanding off both the back and the top surfaces completely. I start off at 100 grit and work my way up to 220. Now of course once the sanding portion is complete, I then proceed to wiping it all off with some mineral spirits. I take a clean lint-free cloth, wet it down with some mineral spirits, and wipe the entire surface, back and all sides included. This in general is always one of my favorite portions of the project because you always get to see the underlining beauty of this wood. At this point, all you've seen is a lot of dirt and grime and sand, but at this point you're clean off the surface and you truly see the amazing grain work that is within the black walnut. Within the black walnut, yes, the black hole. Don't mind me and my weirdness. Anyways. Once it dries, I then take a tack cloth and remove the remaining amount of dust and debris that's on the surface. There's always a little bit that the mineral spirits can't pick up, which is why the tack cloth is always a perfect tool to remove the remaining dust particles. As you can see right there. Yeah, plenty. Now comes the real fun portion of this entire project is finishing, and we're going to be utilizing the cutting board oil and the wood wax from Walrus Oil. Yes, Walrus Oil. I'll put a little disclaimer at the bottom saying no walruses were hurting during the making of this video. Yes, it's actually the case, and this is fully food safe type product because there's only 4 ingredients, which is beeswax, coconut oil, mineral oil, and vitamin E. Yes, just what the doctor ordered for this project. And this product actually goes on quite smoothly and easily. You apply a nice generous layer to both sides of the board. I let it dry for approximately 15 minutes and actually applied a second layer of the cutting board oil first. Then once I applied 2 layers, I wiped off the excess vigorously and then applied a layer of the wax. Now I'll leave a link in the description box below on where to actually purchase both these products, but just know I'm applying both products with a lint-free cloth. Now both products can be used on the same board, you just need to make sure you're applying the oil prior to the wax. Applying the wax first would not be so good, especially when trying to apply oil to it afterwards, so just note to self on that one. Now you can use each one of these products in a solo application, but inevitably I want some lasting durability, especially with the fact that this thing is going to be cleaned multiple times, and using both products will allow that to happen and be more durable in the long run. After a project like this and a unique project like this, you have to look back and say, my oh my, that is one beautiful, sexy beast of a serving tray. And why not put it to use? Maybe a little cheese, maybe a little salami, maybe a few more crackers, maybe more cheese, maybe a couple pickles, you know. Serve it up. Let's go. Oh! Look at that, BYOT number 51 done, and I must say that is one mighty fine looking serving tray. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video, please subscribe to this channel, and please check out my Instagram feed and my newly developed website at BYOTools.me. You can learn how to support the channel from there. In any case, thank you for your time, and catch you next time. Now I must say this was one of those times where you did something and I just couldn't believe I actually did it. But you know what? You live and you learn. And that little arrow pointing right there is the indication of where my camera was, and then it was on the ground, and that's what happened. Ouch. Luckily we have a lens protector that actually saved the lens.